Wow, 2024. Incredible year for music. Every year it's getting harder and harder to say anything besides that. But this year, I truly could not rank, and I ended up just foregoing and giving up ranking completely. So this year I'm just going to say, what are my honorable mentions, and then what are my favorites, and there's a bunch of favorites. All in all, again, quality was incredible this year. The jam, like the groove, the jam level, the amount of attention to detail, production value. It felt like everybody, even in different subgenres, was ready, not just ready to rumble, but ready to be very, very, very clear that you can't be half in. Every album was incredibly gripping that I loved this year. Gripping, you couldn't just listen to a couple songs, you needed to listen to the whole thing. Everything was exquisite, top to finish, top to bottom. And I also had a great year personally with live music. I kicked off my year with Between the Buried and Me, seeing them. I got to see Fallujah this summer. I got to see Blood Incantation perform Absolute Elsewhere start to finish, plus other things. I got to see Cytotoxin for the first time. I got to see Extermination Dismemberment for the first time. Cognitive was part of one of those shows, I think the Cytotoxin show. And who else did I get to see this year? Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, Crown Magnetar, just phenomenal. Just a really, really phenomenal year for shows. And I'm so thankful. It was a beautiful year for music, and I'm excited to dive into all my favorites. Oh, Aborted! Yes! Vault of Horrors was so insane. I know it's also kind of like the Blood Incantation. It's made a lot of people's lists. It was beloved by so many, and it's so well deserved. It's excellent start to finish, as so many of the records this year were. I love their brand of kind of speedy tech death because it's very youthful, it's very exciting, it's not burdensome, it's not weighed down. They are clean as a whistle and always have been, and it's like the speed of light. It's so fast. It's just wonderful, and it's so enjoyable. And it's not, because again, some tech death can kind of, I call it the brain drill effect. You can kind of get bogged down. I never feel bogged down by Aborted. Aborted is so, it's complex and rich, but it's also light and airy, and it's, again, so fast that it's over before you know it. So much vitality, so much energy. And I know that they had quite a few guests on the album. Everyone nailed all their guest spots. I didn't have a favorite song because I loved all of them. And I'm so excited for their North American tour coming up. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these tracks live. I think it's going to be great. Vulvodynia. I was really excited when I heard they were going to be releasing another album. Their last record made my album of the year list that year too. I just really appreciate their work. It's such a unique, it's slam and it's sort of deathcore-y, but there's enough of a sort of neoclassical underpinning for me where that technique is so gorgeous and on point that they always captivate me. And Entabeni, I think that's how you say it, was just a delicious part of the summer. The album came out around the time that they toured near me, so I got to see them play the title track and a couple others mixed into their set, which was so thrilling. Again, so exciting. It was maybe the second or third time I'd gotten to see them, and I just was so blown away. And I love the record because the elements are, again, tight. Production is beautiful. It's so modern. When I think about bands that are really talking about what's next in metal or where certain subgenres are heading, I always think of Vulvodynia. I just think, I don't know, again, the terminology for what the guitar tones are doing, but it just sounds like the future of where everything is. I also think it's moving that there are underpinnings of and imagery about slavery in the album. That's certainly part of my ancestry, and it's a complicated thing to live with. And even from the album art to the actual lyrics and content in the songs, just any sort of commentary or symbolic nod to that is something that I don't take lightly, and I really appreciate, because it's a haunting, devastating thing that everyone is still living with in some way, and it's happened all around the world, but certainly in South Africa, where they're from, and in the United States, where I'm from. Racism, colorism, economic legacies of what everybody has gone through. It's just a lot, and my family is pretty diverse, so there's other complications from that being part of me too, but this record was really beautiful. My favorite songs were the ferocity on Deviltry was very moving. I thought Mangled and Maimed was a heartbreaking track, but sort of the lament was incredibly creative and incredibly important. Even if, only so many people listen to that song, it's, again, as part of a legacy all over the world, it's a powerful transcription of feelings about that. And the title track, again, I loved. I saw that live, so that's leans in. The bias comes from having seen it, but also just really great song, and just a beautiful. Their technique is some of the best I've heard of folks that are younger, and I know they've gone through lineup changes, and I'm so glad they're hanging in there, because they're something really special. Glacial Tomb's record in 2024 was interesting. It was kind of wall of sound, a little bit techy as far as some of the dissonance and things, but there were also some doomy qualities and doomy features that were really nice. So it was a nice mix of influences and sounds. The two bands that I thought of when I listened to Lightless Expanse in 2024, I thought of Decrepit Birth and I thought of Horrendous, in a blender. And that's kind of how it felt for me listening to Lightless Expanse. Crushing and merciless like Horrendous, but again, some of those dissonant and sort of, I won't say odd because it's not meant in a negative way, but some of those clashing sounds and dissonant sounds reminded me a lot of Decrepit Birth. So super unique and super high quality. I loved the title track actually was my favorite. The song Lightless Expanse was my favorite. So super grateful I got to listen to this one in 2024, and like Peeling Flesh, I get to see Glacial Tomb in 2025 for the very first time, so I'm really looking forward to it. 2025 is looking good for concerts. Another new band for me, Odious Spirit. I hadn't heard of them before 2024 that I can remember, but I thought that the Treason of Consciousness was just phenomenal. Kind of a more of a tech feel again, kind of what I'm into more and more as I get older. And I've always loved, but I'm really leaning in right now at this life stage, last couple years. But what I also loved about this record, it wasn't just tech, it was avant-garde. I love it. Imperial Triumphant's one of my favorite bands of all time. So anything that's willing to go a little avant-garde, I'm all for. So that was a big part of this record that appealed to me, was the avant-gardeness. It's polished, it's chromatic, it's mathy and brainy, but again, without totally sacrificing listenability. My favorite song was The Hissing Pyre. I thought that was awesome. I thought that the second half of Gnawing at the Fabric of Time was another really beautiful example of technique and again, chromatics, counterpoint, leaning or reminding me of some of that Baroque music that I love so much, even though it doesn't sound neoclassical in context. Another song I loved was Unbending Follicle, Unending Blight. I just couldn't even when I heard that song. It was just so damn good. I just didn't even have words. So loved the avant-garde quality here. Really appreciated discovering this in 2024 as well. Never heard of The Last of Lucy. This was a very very welcome introduction to them, and I hope to continue following them. I thought Godform was a brilliant record. Sort of starts out with a proggy, techie bang with the song Wormhole. It's kind of, at first I was like, this is kind of brain drilly. Is this going to be too dense for me to like enjoy it as a listener? I'm not totally sure. But of course I love the percussion straight away. But once we got to like Imperial Banisher, some of the braininess and the cerebral qualities lightened with some grooves, and there was some galloping that I found very fun. I thought that the opening of Twin Flame was genius. There's this sort of almost like kind of, what's the word, personification, symbolic twin guitar doubling and counterpoint that almost reminded me of Twins, kind of also reminded me of Rings of Saturn. They loved that kind of stuff. I thought that Darkest Night of the Soul was an awesome song, and the colors on Anima Flux really just demonstrated sheer power and virtuosity. So I thought that this band really exemplified being extremely technical and dense, but without destroying the experience for the listener and making it just too theoretical. So kudos to them, and I'm really grateful I stumbled upon this in 2024. Apparition's record takes a slightly different approach to some of the other records from the year. It was a death metal style record with a lot of atmospheric elements, but also some progressive elements as well. And I really, really enjoyed that hybridization. I thought it was very, very compelling. So many of the songs were exquisite to me. I loved, I'm about to list most of them. So Asphyx Creation, Imminent Expanse of Silence, Not or Not. I hope I got that right. Paradoxism, Excruciating Refuge, and Reoccurring Torment. Circulate. Is it? I may have spelled this wrong. I have it Circulate, but I think it's maybe Circulate, and I just spelled it wrong. Death metal and atmosphere don't always go together. It depends on how you tune it and how you structure it, in my opinion, but I thought this was a really beautiful record with the atmosphere, the death metal, and some of the more progressive elements, and there was not a bad song. Oh, as far as sort of like tech death giant, type albums, Unextinct by Hideous Divinity was superb, truly. Everything was so good this year, and so it's hard, but this was a standout immediately for me when I heard it. Exquisite technical death metal through and through, fast, rich, tons of wall of sound, incredibly epic. I think the music was very well embodying what the album art and the theme of the lyrical themes were. This sort of the ferocity of the ocean and a shipwreck and rocking and swaying and being thrown all over the place. It managed to communicate that without losing control technically. Like, the technique was so tight, it was so disciplined, but I still felt like I was on that ship, rocking and losing my way and possibly about to die. Against the Sovereignty of Mankind, Quasi-Sentient, Leben ohne Führer, those are my favorite songs on the album. Stunning. Just a really, 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 really stunning record. A true, true work of art. Hippotraktor seems to have absolutely solidified and polished themselves, even though they strike me as a younger band. I don't know exactly how long they've been together, working together. I've only known about them for a few years. Stasis is perfection. I mean, it came out in kind of peak summer, July. It was just that post-metal, industrial, fresh, clean, gorgeousness that I always love in the summertime. It's so refined, it's so stunning. We've got some of those progressive elements. The production is always exquisite, top-notch. I know some people don't care about certain elements of production. I'm someone who loves squeaky clean production. When I can't have it or it's not part of the style, I get it, but when I can have clean production, I always prefer it. Descent is amazing. Silver Tongue, I have Tasty Gent Madness as a note next to Silver Tongue. Not a whole lot else to say. They have nailed what they're trying to do. It's always so clean and polished, and was a great, great, great blessing and addition to everything that came out in 2024. I'd heard of Vredehammer before this year. They kind of flew under the radar for me. I think I'd listened to a song or two of theirs previously, but the 2024 record, Godslayer, was easily one of my favorites for the year. Came out in June, so like a really fun, kind of punchy start to the summer season. I think from the way From the Abyss starts, it's a super high energy, just immediately engaging track, and kind of leads through, and that kind of engagement is consistent through the whole record. It almost reminded me, the opening of, and some of the tones in From the Abyss almost remind me of Fear Factory. It's kind of fast and furious, so much energy, like got kind of those wonderful death metal qualities, but also speedy and a little bit blackened. Just loved it very much. My favorite tracks are the title track, Godslayer, The Dragon's Burn. I have a note for The Dragon's Burn. I have Stank Face, because it was just one of those tracks that you kind of like, it's so good. Death Becomes the New Day reminded me of Psychroptic, which is always a great thing. Product Human Slave, awesome as well. Really, really incredible record in 2024. Fractal Generator gets a lot of brownie points with me because they reminded me immediately of Imperial Triumphant, and I always mention them, and sort of anything that reminds me of them I'm really, really interested in, because I love what they do. And as soon as this record, Fractal Generator's record, which is called Convergence, starts, we get an opening track that to me sounds a lot like Imperial right away, which is great. I wish the production on this record was a little bit cleaner, but it kind of reminds me again of like when I first heard Imperial Triumphant years ago. It was a little bit muddy in some parts, but I kind of felt like that was part of the theme in talking about the grit and filth of the metropolis and just of people's vile impulses and things. That is part of their theme. So I kind of understood why this record wasn't, super squeaky clean. Cryogenian, which is that opening track, amazing. Convergence was a great track. Ancient Civilizations was an amazing track. I loved how on Ancient Civilizations there's a lot of extra descant, extra synths, grooves. It's kind of a galactic cinematic track to kind of keep things going. So really, really solid, really, really impressive record, and very, very artistic. Chatpile was another new band for me in 2024. Hadn't heard of them, hadn't ever listened to anything, so their record, Cool World, was a fascinating and kind of fresh discovery for me last year, or this year. I'm recording this a few days into 2025, so a little jumbled, but super avant-garde, a little bit industrial, and I love both of those qualities. There's some gent, there's some kind of garage style intensity as well. The vocals are very kind of garage sounding, which is an interesting pairing with the avant-garde and some of the more industrial takes and elements. Very modern. Bands like this make me think about where sort of metal could be going, because there's always beautiful, interesting things people are doing, but there's very specific combinations, often including avant-garde, that make me think, okay, they're really trying to push the envelope, and I definitely thought that when I was listening to this record. Frownland was one of my favorite tracks. I thought it was really fresh, really modern, very cool, I guess, cool work, like the album title, it is. I thought Camcorder was super groovy and fun as well. So an interesting album, very artistic, very creative, and very forward-thinking. Really liked it. I'm going to attempt this pronunciation. Critidiomycosis, Slime Lord's record from this year. This one was interesting to me because it was very unique. I wasn't used to the style. It kind of reminded me of Sorvain a little bit. It's kind of that proggy, sludgy doom sound, but there's some atmospherics going on as well. I don't know. It was just something that it caught my attention for the weightiness and the way the doom elements worked again with that haunting mystery journey storytelling vibe that I enjoy so much. My favorite song is the Beckoning Bell. It had a very, very intense arc, and it sets up, it's a brilliant title because it sets you up for this journey, and it invites you and says, are you willing to come along this journey? Do you want to be beckoned in? And I have in my notes, a bitch is beckoned and I'm coming. I want to see what happens next. I also love the track, okay, here we go, pronunciation. Batra Comorpha Resurrection. I love that song as well. I don't know, it was, again, a unique album, kind of off the beaten path for what I normally am super attracted to. But I was incredibly, again, encouraged to join that haunting, bog, swampy, scary path that they were laying out for me. Exocrine's Legend was a standout from the beginning, and it's tough when albums come out early in the year because you don't want to be, I'm sure the labels and the bands don't want to be like forgotten as the year goes on, but I've consistently throughout the year thought about this record and knew right away that it was going to be on my list. Very technical again, but it's also very melodic, and it does also tie in classic death metal structures. You can immediately tell that the percussion is one of the biggest stars of the show here, which is like a win times a million for me, for there to be excellent percussion. It's super fast, top-notch quality. Warlock is my favorite song. That was the song that gave me the most panoramic view of what was going on, lyrically, sonically, otherwise. I didn't have a whole lot else in my notes, but other than to say that this one stuck with me, this is one of the records that I thought about consistently, even though it came out in that Q1 early part of the year. Exquisite, really, really beautiful work. What I love so much about Evelyn's record in 2024, Mondestrunken, I think. It's absolutely a technical explosion from the minute you start. It's brainy, it's dissonant, there's accidentals and these crazy scales, it's filthy. The bass is super prominent. I feel like our bass players and bassists don't always get what they deserve in the final cut, so a lot of great bass action. Dread, the opening track, is killer. It's like, it snatches you right up. The avant-garde touches on the song Omission are really, really neat. Penance has great march and sort of bombast to it, and the tempo changes in contrast are really, really exciting. Eat the Elite is just a phenomenal, superb song, just across the board. Everything was just awesome on this record, and I really, from the beginning to the end, was incredibly engaged and very, very appreciative. Six record was another one in 2024 that had a sense of vitality, newness, pushing the envelope energy. The album Earthflesh was it was a bit jarring at times, but it was cool. Again, very modern, like cool work. Sludgy, kind of a death metal, a little bit technical as well. Kind of like I think about like bands like Sorvain. If a band like Sorvain kind of pushed the envelope a little bit further in a slightly more techie direction, that's kind of the energy I felt in what I feel in records like Six record. Really enjoy a lot of the sliding technique, a lot of the gritty atmospherics and touches on the music. One of my favorite songs was Where I Am Going There Is No Light, and another one I loved is The Sermon. The Sermon was an exquisite track. So sludgy, modern, pushing envelopes, a little bit technical, a little bit deathy, and yeah, loved it. And it was a nice surprise for me, a nice welcome surprise for me in 2024. So albums like this next one make me almost, it's like one of the one times where I'm happy I don't swing finishing this video and this compilation till the new year actually comes, because if I had posted this already, I would have missed the chance to review and enjoy this record, or think about this record as a 2024 contender. Misanthropy. I know misanthropic is the adjective form. Misanthropy, I think, is how you say it in noun form. The ever-crushing weight of stagnance. What a fantastic album. Came out in December. Again, almost missed it. So glad I didn't miss it. Brutal death sound with some technical elements. Like, just the perfect way to end the year. Perfect, powerful punch to end 2024. Opening song was super great. Awesome time signature changes to kind of kick things off. The opening song is called Of Sulking and the Wrathful. What a fabulous title. How chic is that? There's also in that song like a random middle passage that kind of reminds me of Between the Buried and Me, so super cool, kind of out of left field. Love that kind of creativity. The vocals kind of take a back seat a tiny bit on this record to really let the instruments shine, which I love. Of course, you can hear the vocals, and they exist, but they're not super forward in the mix. And it's great because I love being able to hear all of the instruments just soar, and all of the playing that those people do just soar. And I will say, like some of the other albums of the year that had some bits that reminded me of Decrepit Birth, the way the vocals were delivered reminded me of Decrepit Birth. So kind of another reminder of that incredible band. I thought Condemned to a Nameless Tune gave insane avant-garde energy. Some of the guitar chromatics remind me of, guess who, Imperial Triumphant. So super exciting there. Like the ending, I was gonna say, there's every song was amazing, but I think the last note I had was the finale on Sounds of the Abyss at the very end of the album. This amazing sort of passage out of nowhere at the end, stunning chef's kiss, and a wonderful way to end. So this was just my blessing at the very end of the year that I almost didn't catch in time, but absolutely one of my favorites of 2024. The band Morgue released Close to Complete Darkness in 2024, and it was a stellar record. I have a lot of notes for this one. It felt like a sort of elevated version of, I think, because Christ Denied had another record that came out this year that I didn't love as much, but I remember thinking this record seemed like what the Christ Denied record maybe could have been had they, I don't know, upped the ante just a little bit. And I'm nobody, so no one gives a fuck what I think. Everyone's great and everyone's talented and wonderful, but that was something I immediately thought about because I listened to the Christ Denied record around the same time. I thought this record was incredibly impressive. It was engaging, kind of a classic death metal sound, which sometimes classic anything can run the risk of maybe not being as exciting, but I thought this was still a really exciting record. Upon the Altar was a great way to kick off the album. It felt like we were running. I felt like I was scared and looking over my shoulder listening to that first song, which, I like feeling a little bit scared when I listen to metal as far as the intensity and the ferocity, so it was a really exciting, engaging way to start. It's a very tactile record. I can almost feel the essence of the instruments almost in a tactile way. So that's, even though I don't play drums or guitar or any of that stuff. So that's something very kind of a sensation heavy. What is that called? Synchronicity, when you feel what you can hear in a physical way. Not sure, but loved that song. I love the building and the sense of kind of arc on the song Sacrificial Blood. I thought Disobedience was a really fun track and had a lot of exciting tempo changes. And I thought Towards Complete Darkness, the title track, or close to the title track, was awesome. It was terrifying. There were great gallops, and there was great percussion. I felt like this album was really full and really meaty and just really, really dense in a really great way. So really, really loved Morg's record I keep saying this year, in 2024. Oh, Path of Divinity by Olamot. This was a very exciting listen. As a student of music, this was one of my favorites technically to absorb and reflect on. The production of the album took a second for me to adjust to. Like, I wasn't immediately on board. I was kind of like, what's going on? It kind of, there was a sort of punchy, urgent immediacy that was kind of sharp leaning at the very beginning of the album. And the reaction that I had was similar to the reaction I had at the beginning of Id by Veil of Maya. Kind of was a little taken aback, and sort of there's this genty metalcore but also tech death feel. Took a second for me to adjust. But for a lot of the songs, and so many of the songs were amazing, I had these very specific nerdy things I noticed. So for Everlasting Chains of Darkness, I loved sort of the squeal riffs, and the ending was kind of psychroptic-y, which always a plus. There was incredible percussion throughout the album, and percussion is my favorite element in all of metal. So whenever there's incredible drumming, I'm always extra interested. On Adrenochrome, that was sort of a kind of high voltage, high octane, exciting journey, and some of the I thought I caught some 64th note kicks that were just like mind blowing. Like, how does someone's feet go that fast? So amazing. And the transitions were kind of similar to Vulvodynia, which I really liked. Soul Harvest was filthy. It was fun. More of a classic death metal vibe, but just filthy. When a song is filthy, I'm also like, yes, the filth, let's do it. And then Luciferic Allegiance, that was kind of an interesting track because it galloped in a way that I found very, very interesting, and the chords were really great. And it kind of reminded me of Decrepit Birth a tiny bit. So I think in this one album, I heard so many exciting things, references to some of the greats, like and then Vulvodynia, this young, excellent band, Decrepit Birth. So it was so lush. There was just so much to enjoy in this record. I'm so happy for Huntsmen. They actually are from where I'm from. So it's really, really cool to see them flourish in the way they do on the dry land. I know it wasn't like a traditional, like, full album. I think it wasn't. Was it technically an EP? I think it was an EP. I don't know. But just every song was magnificent. The creativity of Huntsmen is something that I remember catching pretty early on and really appreciating early on, but I feel like the dry land is that precipice of the metamorphosis of that creativity, of that Americana, of the doom with the sort of other metal elements. It was so exciting when it came out. I love how from everything from This Our Gospel, we have things like wall of sound and kind of progressive elements with those Americana harmonies, just so refined. There's gorgeous chord work on Cruelly Dawns. I feel like their guitar tuning is so apt and so perfect for what they're trying to do. I know I'm not a guitar player, but from what I've learned, and even as a listener, there are certain styles of production that do and don't work for certain what's the colors that you're trying to make, and their guitar tuning is so on point for what I believe they're trying to do. I think there's almost a euphoric level of catharsis at the zenith of the song Lean Times as well. I'm just so happy for them. They work so hard, and they're so friendly and nice, and love to see a neighbor kind of ascend and do such gorgeous things. So congrats, Huntsmen. Hope to see if there's going to be a fuller, longer length thing coming up. I can only imagine what it's going to be. So thank you so much and congrats. I like the hybridized sense of brutal tech, or I guess high quality, high beautiful production tech death, and the brutal death and sort of slam undertones that came with the Spiritual Deception album in 2024. The album was called Semite Mentis, and I just really appreciated the mastering of all those different styles in one, because some would argue that there are compromises one makes between a tech death sound and a brutal slam sound. There's also technical slam, and all these subgenres kind of get so there's so many, you just lose track after a while. But I thought in this album the vocals were more slam style vocals, and then the instrumentation had that brutal death and super technical quality. I loved the chromatics and the guitar work on Days of Sleep. I thought that Beyond Perception and Matter was just a really beautifully composed track and very complete track all along, or all together. And I thought that Individuality Dissolves was a really lovely track as well. Really well put together. And there's some piano bits in there that almost remind me a little bit of our good friends Flesh God Apocalypse. So overall, really beautiful album, really excellent, brutal and tech, and a little bit of slam energy, and I really enjoyed it. Oh man, divine magnificence in Replicant's album from 2024. Infinite Mortality is there's just so much I have. Okay, so right away I found it very engaging, very solid, kind of this groovy tech death sound again, which a lot of the stuff I've been loving in the last several years has been in that kind of direction. At first, the production was a little tricky for me. I'm not the biggest fan of hardcore, and the production reminded me a bit of hardcore, but it's not fuzzy or like obscure in any way, but it just reminded me of that. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll like this, but I don't love hardcore. We'll see. Boy, was I wrong. It's obviously, I know the genre is not hardcore, and it's not, and it's just stunning. So Acid Mirror is a fantastic opening track. It's kind of lurking, kind of like the Veil of Panath, a little of that sort of, I'm a little scared, but I like it, kind of energy. Shrine to the Incomprehensible. The pacing is wonderful. The wall of sound is wonderful. The message is haunting as fuck. The riffs really storytell in a way that's just fantastic, in my opinion. Orgasm of Bereavement is a very cool track, even though it's a little bit shorter. Reciprocal Abandonment might be my favorite. The midsection, the coda, the way the riffs build in that song, chef's kiss, unbelievable. Same with Pain Enduring. That the structure of that song storytells and drives the message in a really gripping way, and the coda is insane. And then Planet of Skin was fascinating because it was a slightly proggier song, but it had this amazing question-answer exchange and counterpoint with the guitars. It was almost fugal, and that kind of thrills me as someone who loves Baroque music a lot. So just, a divine record, and so complex. Loved every second. I listened to a lot of Veil of Panath when I was in high school, but I haven't always kept up with them super closely in recent years. But Between the Worlds of Life and Death was incredible. It was just, there's so many ways to interpret what that purgatory, afterlife, no afterlife thing, like there's so many ways to think about that and express that musically. I thought that this way that they chose to do it in their album it was frightening. It was sinister. It was obviously this kind of blackened tech death kind of sound, but it kind of was like steadily creepy, but also had a groove. So, and again, when I'm listening to metal and I'm at shows, like a little bit of fear is something that I find exciting in my process. So, not literal, but if there's sort of frightening, creepy feelings from the music, I quite enjoy that as sort of part of my process. So, opening the album with Silent Prayers, again, I was kind of kind of freaked out, but I was incredibly intrigued. I wanted more. Soul Offering was a fascinating track. It kind of to me almost reminded me a little bit of Flesh God Apocalypse, a little bit, with a tiny bit of like old Dimmu Borgir sounds. That was fun. The middle and end section of the song Shadow, amazing. Incredible midsection, incredible conclusion or coda there. All of the songs were excellent. And I left at the end of the final track wishing there were 2 or 3 more tracks. So, terrifying concept, beautiful execution. I was sufficiently scared and I wanted more. So, thank you, Bailiff Panath, for bringing me back in. Okay, time to speak to my shirt sake. I almost said namesake, but it's not, shirt sake, whatever that is. Cognitive's album, oh my word, Abhorrence, came out in the springtime. I always expect incredible work from them. They're an incredibly talented band, and this record was, like so many this year, start to finish, a complete idea, a complete thought. Excuse me. When I first heard the opening track, I remember just thinking like, oh yes, like in my notes I have yes ma'am with a bunch of M's at the end, because it was just ferocious. It was ferocious. The riffs are incredible. The percussion's incredible. My favorite tracks literally are Insidious, Rorschach, Lunar Psychopathy, Cold Dead Hands, which is half the album or more. Exquisite technical death metal with some other elements. I got to see them perform a lot of it live this year, which was really, really thrilling. And I love a ferocious album. Just an album that is terrifyingly intense and terrifyingly almost mean and scary sounding, but it's because it's so well done. And I don't know, the idea of something being so abhorrent, the soundscape of that came through in a really, really powerful way. So very grateful to Cognitive in 2024 and always. I'm a little embarrassed and a little ashamed to admit that I didn't really know much about Peeling Flesh until I discovered the G code in 2024, but I didn't really know about them, and I'm sad because the G code is an awesome record. Really, really fun, modern, some gore grind elements. The vocalist is insane, incredibly gifted, so much charisma. It reminds me a little bit of Body Count with Ice-T, not just because the gentleman is of color, but just that energy, that style. I wonder if potentially Ice-T was an influence for him, because it's a very similar energy, even though the music isn't quite the same. I wouldn't say Body Count uses any sort of gore grind elements, but there's this nice juxtaposition and balance of rap, new metal, gore grind, death metal, a little bit of traditional death metal sounds, and just other really super insane virtuosistic groovy elements in their sound. And I just thought the G code was super fun and super dense and rich and full and complete. And I'm thrilled to say that I will be getting a chance to see Peeling Flesh for the very first time in 2025, and I really can't wait to see some of these songs live and just kind of get to know what they're all about a little bit more. Blood Incantation. Ah, my gosh. the last time they came to my city, they opened. So the skyrocketing success and excitement around Absolute Elsewhere was so thrilling in 2024. I can't act like I've been a deeply committed fan from day one with them, but I definitely have seen them and listened to some of their other stuff and always been impressed. But man, was Absolute Elsewhere just, they ranked, I think, in Time Magazine and NPR, like mainstream outside of the metal world. Everyone was so impressed, and it really, really is so accurate. Quality, I mean, the doom elements, the elements that are similar to Pink Floyd and psychedelia, all of their stuff, all of their elements really transcended into a stunning, stunning package. I almost don't have words. It kind of just speaks for itself. And all of the different messages and the tablet tracks, I can barely, message number 2 was probably my favorite, but again, I can barely almost even say that, because it's a stunning package all together, start to finish, and seeing it live was a great honor of my life, and I'm really happy for them, and they really deserved everything they got this year, and I hope that excitement and support of them continues. Well, that's going to do it for me as far as my reflections on the year in music. Again, I totally gave up on trying to rank. I mean, it was too much, and I may not ever be able to rank anymore. If this is where the scene is continuing to ascend to, I don't know if I'll ever be able to rank again. We'll see. I know there's going to be some great stuff coming out in 2025, and there's an amalgam of wonderful tours already being announced. So, a lot going on in the world, but I just want to I say this every year, and I probably said it at the top, but just thank you to all these incredible musicians, and thank you to everyone around them who helps make their dreams and their beautiful art possible. I can only imagine the sacrifices of families and friends and, you know, labels and managers and whatever, and including just the incredible sacrifice and courage and inspirational devotion of the musicians themselves. Like, that never gets old to me. I'm never not super thankful and inspired and moved by everything you guys do. And even I'm continuing to work on my individual practicing and technique, and I was swung pretty big in 24 with my own YouTubes and like my covers. I kind of got a little too ambitious in some cases and kind of fucked up and sounded flat and made mistakes editing and stuff this year, but everyone's been really nice and supportive, and I just and I've started to kind of play around on Twitch a little bit with like no equipment, and people have been really nice. And people have been welcoming me to their Discords and their other communities where they talk about music and creating, and that is so helpful to me. In a dark, kind of intense world, it's just everything to be able to create and to try to create. And because I'm not a composer, and I can't write my own music, and that's not where my talent lies. When I interpret other people's work, I do so I try to do it with the utmost respect and gratitude. So thank you guys for I was going to say amazing and incredible. Thank you for an amazing, incredible year. Thank you to all the bands that toured in 24 and who we will see again in 2025. You guys are amazing, and we would not be here without your beautiful art. So have a wonderful year. I'll see you guys around, and just thanks for everything.